All right, let's get some of this filter off there. Looks pretty good. Hello. All right, Randy, we'll wait for a couple people. There we go. Everyone's starting to show up. This is a big one today, guys. Going over a lot of stuff here. Gonna be kind of going over some of the stuff that I've had it before that was gotten lost, getting a lot of requests for certain items, which since I've done before, I've grown in the understanding of it. So what started out to be a little project has grown into this massive giant like feat. So we're gonna take try and break it down because there's a lot of stuff that is being requested that I definitely want to go over again. So we're gonna have to start right back at the beginning, and we're just gonna start putting this together. And that's what we're gonna be talking about in this is just as I re-uploaded the Grand Deception. Now we're going to be looking at the idea, anyway, the presentation that they're bringing forward, which is a one world religion, and the idea and the concepts of it, and where it came from, and the people behind it, and how would you convert a whole world into one religion and one mindset. So that's what we're going to take a look at in this one. Alrighty, so we're 2 minutes in. We got 12 people. We'll just finish off here for one more minute and then we will get going. I hope everyone's doing okay with all these new changes that are coming. A lot of big events going on in the US right now, pushing a lot of things forward. So, yeah, a lot of stuff getting ready to boom over there. The mandates are starting to fly regardless of what's going on. They're testing their programming, that's for sure. They're seeing how far the sheep are willing to go. They're going for it. They're gonna push this system in. It's gonna be interesting. Alrighty, we hit 3 minutes. Let's just get going. Alright, so in the world today, there is a massive movement going on, and in that world movement, there seems to be this understanding that people think that there's a giant awakening, a massive spiritual realization, a almost evolutionary, a human evolutionary point that man is about to kind of explode into knowledge and understanding of truth, and all the lies are going to be exposed. And there's this big movement with a religion that's attached to it that a lot of people don't see that religion. So, in order to understand why there's a great awakening being preached out there, we have to go back all the way to the Garden of Eden, which is interesting because it always goes back to the Bible, in which it states, "But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God said, You shall not eat of it, or you will die. And the serpent said to the woman, You shall not die, but you shall be as gods." So we get these polar arguments. God suggesting that if you eat it, you will die. The serpent suggesting you won't die, so you'll have eternal life, and you will be as the gods, knowing good and evil. So you will be eternal. You will have eternal life, and you will be knowledgeable. And it's interesting how much that has been programmed in and before us. It's in everything. The concept of the argument of the serpent, this whole "you aren't going to die." There's a wisdom in things. It's a very interesting argument.
think it would end this way.
End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take. The grey rain curtain of this world rolls back, and all turns to silver glass. And then you see it.
What? And Alf? See what?
White shores. And beyond, a far green country into a swift sunrise.
That isn't so bad.
No, it isn't.
The concept of when you die, you're dead because of the sin attached to this argument, and the argument of no, you're not actually going to die, you're going to live forever. In fact, like, we have to be able to see that that is a huge argument that's going on in this world, and it goes all the way back to the garden event. Like, there's a reason why this is out there. And now what's interesting about it is that was the verse in which we saw the tree of life being analyzed, right? That's where uh, they had to leave the garden because lest they also took forth from the tree of life. So, because they followed Satan in the garden, the serpent in the garden, and they took upon the quest to gain eternal life and be like God, they had to put on the counterfeit tree of life. And that's the mystery Babylon religion that we see that came out of Babylon, which has been derivated down to us. Which is interesting because when we take a look at the symbolism of this, we get the serpent and the staff. And when we take a look at the Mystery Babylon religions throughout time, we can take a look at that, as many will honestly know about the staff of Hermes, right? The caduceus, the staff carved by Hermes, the Greek mythology. So we're familiar with that reference. It's also referenced in the Baphomet. But it actually goes even all the way back to Uraeus, which is an Egyptian reference, where it comes from in its Egyptian word meaning rearing cobra. It is a stylized, upright form of an Egyptian cobra used as a symbol of sovereignty, royalty, deity, and divine authority in ancient Egypt. The uraeus is a symbol for the goddess Wajet. The pharaohs wore the uraeus as a head ornament, as a crown encircling the head. Whatever manner that the uraeus was displayed upon the pharaoh's head, it was, in fact, part of the pharaoh's crown. The pharaoh was recognized only by wearing the uraeus, which conveyed legitimacy to the ruler. We can also see to the degree in which the uraeus was applied for that, because they talked about the divinity. Here we see Isis wearing it on their forehead, the crown, how the serpent is on the forehead. And we can also see how on top of that, we see the sun being cradled. We can also see the constant reference to the serpentine body in Isis as the melding of a couple different ideas in the Egyptian mythology. So we get, both of the imagery of the serpent. And when we take a look at that and we take a look at these main symbols that come out of those time periods with uh, both of those imageries, we get a two-scaled, legged, following up the spine, leading to the crown. So you can see the two legs, they're they're spiraling up the whole idea of the Kundalini energy flowing up the spine, leading to the crown, where it wraps around to the forehead in the form of a serpent sitting under the cradle of the sun. Like, this goes all the way back to Egypt. And you can see the same symbolism in the serpent legs wrapping up the spine, forming on the forehead. And it all sits with the sun on top, with her wings spread out all the way back to Egypt, which is the caduceus. It's the two serpent legs going up the spine with the two wings with the sun on top. It's the exact same symbolism. So it goes all the way back to the Greeks, goes all the way back to Egypt, and then we can see a lot of this actually goes back to the Nimrod system. So again, Mystery Babylon, that serpent of old, the devil and Satan, all the way back to the garden, and that same old argument of his promise of eternal life and godhood through ascension. Which is interesting because if you want to know where it really comes from, this whole symbol of the snake and the staff, it actually comes from Numbers 21, 4, verse 9, when it says, when it's talking about how the Israelites had basically a turn on God because times got a little bit uncomfortable. And it says, and they journeyed from the Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea and encompassed the land of Edom. And the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul is hating this new light bread, the manna from heaven. And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many of the people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and spoken against you, and ask you to pray to the Lord that he take the serpents away from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, Make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. So Moses made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. This symbol is also the symbol played out in Jesus, who, when we, the human race, have been bitten by the serpent and believe this lie of eternal life through the knowledge and uh, attempt to become godlike, that we have been bitten by that. We have been cursed. We have sin and death in us, but we can come to the Jesus who was hung on the stick to cure us of that. The exact same concept of the redemption promise. And this is, the process of the counterfeiting of the Bible over and over and over again. And this is where confusion comes in, where people think that the Bible is just another one of these, when in fact it is the source in which all these different counterfeits come out of. For many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. And probably no more in our current age than that of H.P. Blavatsky. In her book, Isis Unveiled, Isis, after all of that, and we can see the connection all the way back to Egypt. In Isis Unveiled, it is here master key to the mysteries of ancient and modern science and theology. Published in 1877, it is a book of esoteric philosophy and Helena Petrovna Blavatsky's first major work and a key text in her theosophical movement. According to the Theosophical Society itself, Isis Unveiled was intended to make known to the world the existence of a once universal wisdom religion, now hidden from view. The symbolic Isis, the wisdom religion, is indeed veiled, since it had been lost to the world for long ago ages. But it exists. This startling news caused so much excitement that the first printing of 1,000 copies sold out in 10 days, which in 1877 was actually quite a feat. So, even according to the Theosophy uh, Society itself, it was to make known to the world the existence of a once universal wisdom religion. Sounds a lot like Genesis 11 to me, where it says, And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And they said to one another, Go, let us make brick and burn it thoroughly. And they had a brick of stone and slime, and they made it into mortar. And they said, "Go, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered upon the face of the whole earth." And God came down and confounded the language, that they may not understand one another's speech. And the Lord scattered them abroad upon the face of the earth, and they left off and could not finish building the city. Throughout both volumes of Isis Unveiled, she cited book after book written by ancient authors from all over the world, showing on their part a knowledge of the teaching of the now lost wisdom religion. In this way, she showed that although this knowledge has become lost, partly through the religious fervor of the followers of separative religions and partly through being withdrawn by its custodians to safeguard it from such sectarians, it was once common knowledge, but it had for many centuries been carefully hidden away. So, how did Blavatsky learn of the existence of the once universal wisdom religion, hidden so well from so long? And again, this is according to the Theosophical Society. She had gone to the East in the search of wisdom and found certain individuals who were its custodians. But Blavatsky was not the only person who traveled to the East in search of such wisdom. So, why did she find the wisdom religion when others did not? It would seem rather that its custodians found her. The custodians of the wisdom religion made up of a secret brotherhood centered in Tibet and India. Two members of the Tibetan Brotherhood were Blavatsky's primary teachers, called the Theosophical Writings of the Matamas, the Kuthumi, and the M. Moraya, the great 14th century Tibetan teacher, and who reformed the Tibetan Buddhism and founded the Gatupa order, is said to have also reformed the secret Tibetan Brotherhood, who are the custodians of the wisdom religion. Among the reforms of the latter is an injunction to make an attempt to enlighten the Western barbarians during the last quarter of each century. Hitherto, we are told, each attempt has failed. Then came the attempt in 1875, and the Mahamanta writes about the choice of Blavatsky as the agent for this, as a letter now preserved in the British Library. That's right, the hidden secret brotherhood of the ages. And what are the three objects of the Theosophical Society? To form a nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. The brotherhood. Well, what is Freemasonry? It is a fraternal organization. Freemasonry unites men of good character who, through a different of who of different religious, ethnic, or social backgrounds, share a belief in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of mankind. A universal brotherhood. Pope Francis to the world's religious leaders: "We build the future together, or there will be no future. For we too, in the name of God, in order to safeguard peace, need to enter together as one family into an ark which can sail the stormy seas of the world, the ark of fraternity." Fraternity, from Latin meaning brother, where hence brotherhood, or fraternal organization, a brotherhood, the fraternity. Then she continued with her writings. The one considered to be her second greatest writing would be The Secret Doctrine, which got quite the endorsement from one of the great occult writers of the time, Manly P. Hall, who said, "The Secret Doctrine assumes the dignity of a scripture, for in its pages eternal mysteries are clothed in ancient and modern terms, and to those who have eyes to see, the ageless wisdom is revealed." He considers her book, The Secret Doctrine, to be equivalent to Scripture. And he made it on his book, The Secret Teaching of All Ages, that is considered to be one of the greatest encyclopedias, all in one area, with a conglomerate of occult knowledge from all around the world. And if you want to read it, you can go to the CIA government website. They feel it's so important that they present it for everyone. He also wrote The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, for he himself was a Freemason, quite proud of it. It's interesting because when we take a look at this woman with these high praisings and come to realize that even in the mainstream media, she was acknowledged as the roots of the New Age movement. For Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, she might as well be called the godmother of the New Age movement. For when she landed in New York in 1872, she brought to the United States a knowledge of Eastern religion and philosophy that paved the way for contemporary transcendental meditation, Zen, Hare Krishna, yoga, vegetarianism, karma and reincarnation, swamis, yogas, and guru. As her biographer Marion Mead writes, in the decades after Blavatsky's death in 1891, it became trendy to ask, how's your karma today? And she based a big part of her teaching on what is known as the holy science. And when we take a read of it, a little bit here. There we go. All right. So she talks about the holy science and how it applies to theosophy. And this is, keep in mind, the religion that is taking over this world, the uh, hermetic attachment to it, the concept of frequencies, the way we vibrate, and our personal frequencies will determine our spiritual ascension and growth and position. It all comes through this woman, the holy science of consciousness. She goes on to say that whatever plane our consciousness may be acting in, both we and the things belong to that plane are, for that time being, our only realities. As we rise in the scale development, we perceive that during the stages through which we have passed, we mistook shadows for realities, and the upward progress of the ego is a series of progressing of awakenings, each advance bringing with it the idea that now, at last, we have reached reality, but only when we shall have received the absolute consciousness and blended our own with it shall we be free from the illusion, the delusions produced by illusion. So basically, the holy science is about the consciousness religion movement that we see going on. She also goes on to talk about a life after death. So, knowledge, right? The knowledge, the ego, the awakenings, going up, climbing the ascension again. Life after death. The theosophical view, death is not the end of consciousness experience, but on the contrary, is the beginning of wider consciousness, is the beginning of wisdom. Which is interesting because that's the serpent's language yet again. And here we hear about her affiliation towards Freemasonry directly, as there is no record of her having been initiated into a lodge or her attending lodge meetings. She did, however, preserve secrecy on what went on in lodge meetings, and further said that all students of Eastern esoteric knowledge were required to study the procedures of Masonry. A note left by her, interestingly enough, said that I have received from the Sovereign Grand Master General of the ANP Rite of England and Wales a diploma of the 32nd degree. True spiritual perfection and knowledge are nothing else but the complete identification of our finite selves with the great all. It comes from the belief that she puts out of the all, that everything is God, and that within that we ourselves are a form of that God, and we are the finite version of the great all, and we're here through this experience, and we can reconnect, we can grow into that full great allness again, that again we will become gods. She also explains that Lucifer, the spirit of the intellectual enlightenment and freedom of thought, is metaphorically the guiding beacon, which helps man to find his way through the rocks and sandbanks of life. For Lucifer is the logos in the highest and the adversary in his lowest, which of both are reflected in our ego. So she says that Lucifer is a metaphor, and the metaphor is talking about the spirit of the intellectual enlightenment and freedom of thought. So again, wisdom religion. And she said that Lucifer is the logos in the highest and the adversary in the lowest. So Lucifer is the word. Logos means word in the highest. So Lucifer is God. It's very fascinating. What's also interesting is how the Jesuit Superior General, that's right, the Black Pope, Arturo Sosa, has the exact same belief in Satan. The Superior General of the Society of Jesus said on August 21st that the devil is a symbol, not a person. The devil exists as a personification of evil in different structures, but not in persons, because is not a person is a way of acting evil. He is not a person like a human person. It is a way of evil to be present in human life. Good and evil are in a permanent war in the human conscience, and we have ways to point them out. We recognize God as good, fully good. Symbols are part of reality, and the devil exists as a symbolic reality, not as a personal reality. The contemporary Theosophical movement was born with the founding of the Theosophical Society in New York in 1875, just as we heard that the great prophets in India, the great brotherhood, trained her up and sent her out to do and be the voice to the West. What is Theosophy? Well, Theosophy, according to Blavatsky, is then the archaic wisdom religion, which we heard goes all the way back to the point when the world was a universal one world religion. And the last time that happened was at the Tower of Babel. The archaic wisdom religion, the esoteric doctrine, once known in every ancient country having claims to civilization. Its doctrines, if seriously studied, call forth every hitherto dormant power for good in us, and also the perception of the true and the real, as opposed to the false and the unreal. Let us see how the special beliefs which have become associated with the word theosophy have so good a right to it that none of the leaders of the society have ever thought of disavowing their doctrines. Then, as the torch passed, it was passed on to Alice Bailey, who became known as the mother of the New Age movement, with her plan to revitalize Christianity as a disciple of Blavatsky. Alice Bailey was a writer of more than 24 books on theosophical subjects and was one of the first writers to use the term New Age. Bailey was born in Manchester, England, and moved to the U.S. in 1907, where she spent most of her life as a writer and a teacher. Bailey's works, as she describes the majority of her work as being telepathically dictated her by the Master of Wisdom, initially referred to as the Tibetan or by the initials of D.K., later identified as Djwal Crule. Her writings bore some similarities to those of Madame Blavatsky and are among the teachings often referred to as the ageless wisdom. Her vision of the unified society include a global spirit of religion, different from traditional religious forms, and including the concept of the age of Aquarius. The books published by Alice A. Bailey were done by her original publishing company named Lucifer Publishing Company. The ancient myth, according to their own website, the ancient myth of Lucifer refers to the angel who brought light to the world, and it is assumed that the name was applied to the publishing company in honor of a journal which had been edited for a number of years by Theosophical founder H.P. Blavatsky. It soon became clear to the Baileys that some Christian groups had traditionally misidentified Lucifer with Satan, and for this reason the company changed its name in 1924 to Lucius Printing Company. Alice Bailey's activities through the Lucifer Trust Publishing Company included the Arcane School, the World Goodwill, and the Triangles Company. World Goodwill is intended to promote better human relations through goodwill, which they define as love in action. That action included support at the United Nations. Now, this is very important to understand because These people aren't just a religious movement, they're a religious movement of the ruling class. Involvement of the Theosophical Society. After World War II, James Perkins was appointed by ADAR president to be the Theosophical Society's delegate to the opening conference of the international groups held at Lake Success, New York on February 10th through 14th in 1947, with about 250 people attending representing over 100 organizations. This was one of the earliest sessions establishing the now huge body of non governmental organizations, NGOs, that work with the United Nations on many issues. The program of meetings was designed to be primarily informational as to the functioning of the specialized agencies and commissions of the Economic and Social Council. There was discussions of ways in which the non-governmental organizations might voluntarily aid in spreading information about the UN. Social opportunities were afforded to the delegates to become acquainted with and to meet informally with Mr. Triglavly, the Secretary General. Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt addressed the delegates at the dinner that closed the sessions. It had some very big movers and shakers that were part of this Theosophical Society in America. Perkins wrote about the meeting and described how the Theosophists could help the UN in communicating its resources and its message. The Theosophical Society is communicating with the UN to set up its resources and missions. It is precisely because the UN is the most advanced effort in the direction of the brotherhood ever made by collective mankind that Theosophists should support it in every possible way. The principal requisite is to simulate a direct interest in the activities of the UN by broadcasting information about its programs and its needs. A study of this worldwide organization of human energy being applied realistically to major problems of freeing the world of want and fear cannot fail to arouse our interest and enthusiasm. Once graphed, the integrated pattern of the UN's various departments and commissions produced a sense of wholeness which is unfortunately lacking in the minds of most people. Through the conference, the need was expanded or expressed again and again to inform people of the world in all languages of the character and the operations of the various departments of the UN. Miss Perkins and I were impressed with the unique opportunity afforded individual members of the Theosophical Society and the Theosophical Order of Service to serve in this capacity. Lodges or members can initiate programs to distribute information if they will become acquainted with the general setup of the UN, discovering what information is available and how it may be used. Now, what did they do? What did they come up with? And how did they direct and come up? What kind of missions did the Theosophical Society introduce? Well, we can see on July 15th, 1953, the subject was the non-governmental organizations on United Nations information. Well, Group 1, contributions to the teaching about the United Nations organization. Topic, specify how NGO can communicate United Nations information through agriculture, science, and industry. So, how to take over the propaganda and control the information of agriculture, science, and industry. Group 2, the Declaration of Human Rights. Postulate a Theosophical Declaration of Human Rights. That's right, the UN's human rights is based upon the Theosophy religion. Group 3, Universal Morality. Postulate a declaration of universal morality in view of religious differences and communications between different religious groups. That's right, create a universal God religion where, in view of all the different religious beliefs, that they can come together between them. So there needs to be a universal morality, a universal gap that can be removed so that all the religions of the world can come together. Group 4, releasing the divinity in man. Postulate a statement of spiritual values. Get the promoting of the fact that you're man, that you are divine, that you are God. Group 5, task the leading of the world to realize a new age beyond the mind. Construct a non-revolutionary method to achieve international cooperation in the solution of political, economic, and humanitarian problems. 6, A charter of divine rights. Postulate a theosophical charter of divine rights in the view of the goal of humanity. Natural law. It's very interesting. It all comes through theosophy, through the UN. And all this stuff was written before 1957, before she died, in which she wrote, "Thus a great and new movement is proceeding." This was written in 1957 in the book The Externalization of the Hierarchy. Thus, a great and new movement is proceeding, and a tremendously increased interplay and interaction is taking place. This will go on until 2025. During the years intervening between now and then, between 1957 and 2025, there will be very great changes that will be seen taking place. And at the great General Assembly of the Hierarchy, held as usual every century, in 2025, the date in all probability will be set for the first stage of the externalization of the hierarchy. So that means between 1957 and 2025, they are going to be changing the entire system of the world so that everything is destroying, is being taken down, is being removed, so that by 2025, their system will start to be put into place. So, in order for their world order and structure system to be put in, the old one has to come down. And by 2025, the transfer will take place. The Phoenix is crashing from 2020, which we saw in February 2nd, 2020. The Super Bowl halftime show was centered around the Phoenix rising. That means the chaos, and then out of chaos comes what? So there we go. We have order out of chaos. So order out of chaos will begin in 2025. But we're going through the chaos, the come down from 2020 to 2024. And according to her, that's just part of the plan all the way back to 1957. Just like we're hearing everywhere that we need to build back better. Well, they have to tear down in order to build back better. And we are now currently going through the tear down stage and the propaganda to build back better by 2025. Now, we need to pay attention to these things that this woman wrote. We really need to pay attention big time, because what she wrote is taking place all around us continually in all aspects that the UN is following. She is the prophetess for the UN. For she wrote, "In the preparatory period for the new world order, there will be a steady and regular disarmament. It will not be optional. No nation will be permitted to produce and organize any equipment for destructive purposes or to infringe the security of any other nation." Well, on July 7th, 2017, the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and the Nuclear Weapons Ban Treaty was first legally binding international agreement to comprehensively prohibit nuclear weapons with the goal of leading towards their total elimination. And this again was passed on 7/7/7. 2017, well, 17 is the seventh prime, 7/7/7. All around the concept of don't abuse the powers. We don't want the powers of the world to destroy itself. 7/7/7, just like the book Aleister Crowley, and we can see again, we got the wings with the sun on top, we got the two poles, the two serpent legs, the 7/7/7, the uh, two towers, the Jackie and the Boaz, however you want to say it, it all comes back. Which is interesting because that relates to the Hermetic Brotherhood. Our story of Atlantis, author of the Three Sevens. The story of Atlantis, the Hermetic Brotherhood? Well, according to the Theosophical Society, Blavatsky's account has influenced many subsequent pictures of Atlantis, particularly with its assertion that Atlantis perished because its inhabitants misused occult powers. The American sleeping prophet Edgar Casey had a similar and highly influential view. His trance readings drew a picture of Atlantis that in many ways resembled Blavatsky's, although his chronology was different and much more recent. He claimed that Atlantis was destroyed in three cataclysms, like three world wars, and like Blavatsky, Casey said that Atlantis sank because its inhabitants abused their powers. Although of a spiritually higher caliber than those of the preceding root races, the Atlanteans mated with them, producing monstrous hybrids. The good Atlanteans, children of the law of one, wanted to help the hybrids and elevate them to their rightful position as children of God. But another faction, the sons of Belial, treated the hybrids as objects for sensual gratification. So, here are very many of those weird doctrines floating around this world today, like all of them, the great Atlantean conspiracy. It's amazing how this has become the truth community when in fact it's just the theosophy religion of Blavatsky. Oh, check that out. It is no longer just a treaty, for the UN nuclear weapons ban treaty went into force. The United Nations have confirmed that 50 countries have ratified the UN treaty to ban nuclear weapons, triggering its entry into force in 90 days as of October 24th, 2020, thus making Alice Bailey, who wrote that before her death, before the 60s even, and it exactly came to be. Not because she's a prophet, because she's telling them what to do, because they believe she's getting information from a magical ascended master. And through her communications, she was able to write down what he said, and now they're doing what they were told through this ascended master. 90 days from October 24th, 2020, eh? Well, from October 24th, 2020, 90 days later is January 22nd, 2021. From January 22nd, 2021 to our day of interest, December 1st, 2021, is the 313. If you don't know what that is, watch my last couple of videos. January 22nd is also the US president's first day takeover, just as Joe Biden took over on the 1/22, 2021, 90 days after the ratification. January 22, 2021, which is interesting because it was the 22nd day of the year, the master builder number. Days left in the year was 343. The weapons ban treaty was signed on 7/7/7, 90 days after it was announced, it went into effect. 90 days later was 7 times 7 times 7 days left in the year on January 22nd. It's unbelievable. And the date is 12/22/21, which is fascinating considering that 12/22/21 is being advertised to us now as the date that we make the choice. So we've looked at a couple dates of interest: the 10/19, the November 9th, December 1st. Well, they're advertising a choice must be made. The choice is yours, the red pill or the blue pill. 12/22/21, 90 days after the nuclear arms. 12/22/21, January 22nd, 2021. It's crazy coincidences, eh, people? That's crazy people. And what's happening? The Matrix resurrections. On the cross, the resurrections. Your blue or your red pill. Seems like the division bell, the division, the time to make a choice. We're revving up to a period where a question is being forced upon everybody. Will you take the vitamins or will you not? Will you continue on in our contrived society or will you not? The division of the American population is being presented to us in a riddle of 12/22/21. From February 28th, 1994, when the Division Bell was released, to December 22, 2021, where they advertise with the resurrection. You must make a choice, red pill or blue pill. December 22nd, 2021 is all threes, baby. All threes. Just like we saw with Biden and Harris, all threes. So Biden was voted in and took power on the 12/22/21, which connects from the division bell to all threes. It's also interesting to note that upon Charles Earnhardt's death, the partnership agreement stipulated that upon the death of one partner, the surviving partner could buy the other's share of the partnership for half its inventory value. Pfizer promptly exercised this option, buying out his partner's heirs for 119,000. However, in 1900, Pfizer distributed the stock of the company for himself, or for Charles Pfizer Jr. as 334 shares. Emil gets 333 and William got 333. It's just weird. From the 7/7/17, from the date that they signed and started the agreement for the nuclear weapons ban, when we run that to the day that it took effect on January 22nd, 2021, it was exactly 185 weeks to the day. 113 or 1103 is the 185th prime, the 311. And on November 3rd, 2020, was the election day event shown to us in the Simpsons Halloween special, where they predicted that January 20th, 2021, the US would look like this. However, what's interesting about that date is going forward or backward, it is a palindrome, the same as the 12/22/21 is a palindrome. This is just missing one of the twos, the 12/2/21. So if we read it forward or backwards, we can either get December 2nd, 2021 or December 20th, 2021. If we do that, we've identified December 1st. This one identifies December 2nd. We identified now December 22nd by their own date stamping. They went December 20th. There is a huge buildup around these numbers that we have been tracking now for over a year, and it is culminating this December. And we know what the 2 2s and the 2 2 1s have been so far, because they also told us in the Treehouse of Horror in the year 2020 about what the year 2021 was going to be. And we see it leading up into the year 2022. And we also understand it will be followed by World War III in 2023. Everything is going to plan. The world in 2021, according to The Economist, 2020, and the destruction, the splitting of the America into two over this issue, while Biden sits and while war looms and the dollar and the stock markets crash. It's all around us. The war, it's exactly what they said. Do you hold or do you bet? They put it right there. It's all in front of us. What are you going to do? Aleister Crowley, the Theomite does not suffer death. He is eternal. He perseveres himself, the universe, by virtue of the categories of life and death. They believe that when you die, you continue on. The Keystone, some have called God, some Brahma, some Zeus, some even Io, But the truth, O seeker, it is thyself. He himself is God. And who is Aleister Crowley? He is the self-dubbed Great Beast 666. Aleister Crowley is generally considered to be the most important and influential occultist of the 20th century. Clever, well-educated, and a prolific writer, Crowley was a walking encyclopedia of occult thought and practice. Aleister Crowley had a deep respect for Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who founded the Theosophical Society in 1875, the year of Crowley's birth. In Crowley's commentary to The Voice of the Silence, he gave Blavatsky the grade of 8 equals 3, the Master Templi in the A. Aleister Crowley, an influencer and influenced by the leading edge of the Theosophical movement, which influenced the likes of Anton LaVey, L. Ron Hubbard, Wicca, New Age movement, New Thought movements. For Alice Bailey, again, grandmother of the New Age system. Now, Aleister Crowley influenced Anton LaVey, who in turn wrote for us the Satanic Bible. And Aleister Crowley's famously quoted as saying and teaching the law of the Theosophist, which is, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law.
One law and order, and that is what it is. One law. We have one beautiful law.
And it was given unto them to make war with the saints and overcome them, and all that dwell on the earth shall worship them. When you are changing a nation, don't bother with the old people. They are too stuck in the old traditions. They will change not, but go for the children. The 10-point strategy of the New World Order. This is the step-by-step process presented by Alice Bailey, the person who told the UN on how to build the systems which we have just witnessed, seeing that they are following it. They believe the systems and the religion they put up. And this is her 10-point strategy to create the world we are walking into right now. 1. Take God and prayer out of the educational system. 2. Reduce parental authority over children. 3. Destroy the traditional Christian family structure. 4. If sex is free, make abortion legal and easy. 5. Make divorce easy and legal. Free people from the concept of marriage for life. 6. Make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. 7. Debase art and make it run mad. 8. Use media to promote and change the mindset. 9. Create an interfaith movement. And 10. Get governments to make all these law and get the church to endorse these changes. Everything has come to fruition. And as she writes about the age of Aquarius, she now explains what you and I and the world are going through. For if the word initiation signifies the process of entering into, then it is indeed true today that humanity is undergoing a true initiation as it enters into the new age of Aquarius. It will then be subjected to those energies and forces which will break down the barriers of separation and which will blend and fuse the consciousness of all into that unity which is distinctive of the Christ consciousness. For there is no question, therefore, that the work to be done in familiarizing the general public with the nature of the mysteries is of paramount importance at this time, according to Bailey. These mysteries will be restored to outer expression through the medium of the church and the Masonic fraternity. When the Great One comes with his disciples and initiates, we shall have the restoration of the mysteries and their esoteric presentation as a consequence of the first initiation. They're restoring Babylon. So what is the coming one world religion for the masses? It's the Blue Lodges of Freemasonry. We heard it right from their mouths. It will come through Masonry and the church, which we saw the Jesuit agreement with their philosophies. Below is an overview of the commonly known Blue Lodge degrees. The Blue Lodge is a fundamental body of Freemasonry. No other part of Masonry is accessible until one has received the 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge. Admission to the membership of the lodge, as in any part of Masonry, is by petition. Freemasons do not recruit members. In some jurisdictions, they have been allowed a very limited form of inquiry by a Mason to a friend who might be a good candidate as a Mason. However, a man who wishes to join the lodge must request a petition from a brother, the brotherhood. First entered apprentice. Second degree is the fellow craft degree, in which the quadrivium is added in, and we get the three: the grammar, the rhetoric, the logic, the arts of word, and then we get the arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music, the art of the number. The trivium and quadrivium, the hermetic study, will be taught, and through that we get into what we're going to see is one of these hidden mystery religions being taught out into the world. The third degree is the Master Mason degree, putting the Master Mason under much more solemn and weighty obligation, with which concerns his behaviors and duties towards his brethren and also the widows and the orphans. The legend of this degree is the most characteristic and influential in Masonry: the tragic death of the Grand Master Hiram Abiff just prior to the completion of the temple and the associated loss of the ancient master's word. But now it's very interesting to understand, because the world is being transformed into those things, believing that those mysteries are somehow truth nuggets that have been held back from them by the church. The father of Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Albert Pike, says, Masonry, like all religions, all the mysteries, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts, the sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve to be misled. The blue degrees are but the outer court of the portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine he understands them. Their true implication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry. That's right. So all this stuff that we're being taught, that's being given to us, this mystery religion, it's all garbage. It's just there to make you think you know what you're talking about. For all truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabbalah and have returned to the Kabbalah. All the Masonic associations owe it to their secrets and their symbols. And that's where we take a look at one of the so called mysteries that has been revealed to us, that has got our attention. And that's why we are here today, is because of the numbers. And one of the greatest sources to this entire thing is the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, which is a very interesting thing, because a lot of people aren't aware of it, and a lot of people are. So let's take a look at this so that we can bring everybody up to speed, because through this source we get a good understanding of where this hidden mystery and why this hidden mystery has come such awareness of late. And if you wish to read it for yourself, it's available for free on Google Books. The Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, and the 32 Paths of Wisdom, translated from the Hebrew. All right, so it starts off with the note from Wynne Westcott, the Supreme Magus of the Society Rosicrucian in Angelia. William Westcott was the coroner, ceremonial magician, theosophist, and Freemason born in Leamington. He was the supreme magus of the SRIA and went on to co-found the Golden Dawn. So the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a secret society for the rich and famous, akin to the Illuminati, which we see going on in Hollywood, that got taught a bunch of these mysteries. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn included such things as symbolism, gematria, and Freemasonry. Basically, exactly what we're seeing now. But the problem was it became too well known, and everybody kind of it got disbanded because Aleister Crowley, of all people, joined in with it, and it ended up kind of being disbanded and turned into a bunch of different other secret societies. Now, without going too far into it, this William Wynne Westcott is a big, huge player in this, as he was one of the founders, and he came out of the Rosicrucian movement, and he went on to become the supreme magus of the Society of Rosicrucian in Angelia, which was the Templar order. So now what's interesting was this was put forward under his urging, like he's the one behind getting this done, and he did it through the Theosophical Publishing Society. It's interesting about his title as well. He was the Supreme Magus. Well, the Church of Satan, which we saw Aleister Crowley was an influencer of Anton LaVey. And here we have also the Church of Satan, hierarchy of the Church of Satan. Anton LaVey formulated a system of degrees during the early years of the Church of Satan. As such, was a general practice in many prior social and esoteric organizations. And when we take a look at the degrees, the Magus is the fifth degree. So here we have Westcott, who is the Magus, calling forth the bringing and reprinting of the Sefer Yetzirah. Mega, the Magus. It's very interesting stuff. Now, the preface to the book, the Sefer Yetzirah, you can see it says, it has been at the earnest of many students, members of the Theosophical Society, and of my Hermetic friends, basically, of the Order of the Golden Dawn, that I have made a revised translation of the Sefer Yetzirah. In this edition, I have followed most closely the Hebrew version, which has printed in 1642 in Amsterdam, and I have forsaken many of the Latinized renderings which have been adopted in the first edition from the works of whoever that is, Pistorius. The Sefer Yetzirah, although its name means the Book of Formation, is not in any sense a narrative of creation or a substitute Genesis, but it is a very ancient and instructive philosophical treatise upon one aspect of the origin of the universe and mankind, an aspect of one archaic and essentially Hebrew. The grouping of the process of origin into the arrangement at one alphabetic and numeral is only one to be found in Semitic authors. Now, what's neat about that is they do talk about it through Semitic languages. Well, that is also Babylonian. According to Eliphas Levi, the French occultist, the Zohar is a genesis of illumination. The Sefer Yetzirah is a ladder formed of truths. Each letter reproduces a number, an idea, and a form so that the mathematics are capable of application to ideas and to forms not less rigorously than to numbers, by exact proportion and perfect correspondence. The Kabbalistic principles involved in the reversal of Hebrew letters and their substitution by others on definitive schemes should also be studied and borne in mind. It is exactly on these principles that the groundwork idea of this distinguished request that these principles may be traced throughout the Kabbalistic volumes which have succeeded it at this point of time in development and which are now associated together in one volume known as the Zohar, or the Book of Splendor. Attention must be called to the essential peculiarity of the Hebrew doctrines and inextricable the necessary association of numbers and letters, every letter suggesting a number and every group of letters having a numerical signification as vital as its literal meaning. So again, this is why the Hebrew Bible is their source for reference, but the Kabbalah isn't actually believing what the Bible says, but is believing rather that the Bible has a bunch of associations that can be decoded out of this. The author and the reason why the Sefer Yetzirah was reintroduced to the world was because the Theosophical Society wanted it. Why? to go into the Hebrew in order to extract hidden, allegorical, and divination information. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has nothing to do with biblical truth. It has to do with using Babylonian principles to get hidden information out of the Bible. The Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation. In 32 wonderful paths of wisdom did Yah Jehovah, the God of Israel, the Elohim of the living, the King of the ages, the merciful and gracious God, the exalted one, the dweller in eternity, most high and holy, engrave his name by the three Sephirim, numbers, letters, and sound. 22 are the letters, the foundation of all things. There are three mothers, 7 double, and 12. Now, what is this all talking about? The ineffable Sephiroth are 10. So are the numbers. And as there are in man 5 fingers over against 5, so over them is established a covenant of strength by word of mouth and by the circumcision of the flesh. 10 is the number of the ineffable Sephiroth, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. Understand this wisdom and will be wise in the perception. Search out concerning it. Restore the word to its creator and replace him who formed it upon his throne. This is man overcoming creation and becoming a god and usurping the throne of Yahweh. Again, God said, do not eat of the knowledge of this hidden ancient mystery religion, for you shall not live forever. You shall not be gods from it, but in fact you will die. Albert Pike went on to say, that which we must say to the crowd is, we worship a God, but it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, sovereign grand inspectors general, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren in the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. According to Bailey, she suggests that just as self-consciousness is the goal for all subhuman forms of life, and as group consciousness or the consciousness of the heavenly man is the goal for the human being, so for him also there may be a goal. And for him the achievement may be the development of God consciousness. Oprah Winfrey, I was once like you are. I thought Jesus came and died on the cross. Jesus being here was about his death and dying on the cross, but it really was about him coming to show us how to do it, to show us the Christ consciousness that he had and that the consciousness abides in all of us. That's what I got out of it, she says. According to Deepak Chopra, we must find out for ourselves that inside us is a god or goddess in embryo that wants to be born so that we can express our divinity. The Christ consciousness, the movement that's taking over the world, the new religion for all mankind, coming through Masonry and the church. There was a warning all the way back in the garden. There was a warning at the time of the flood. There was a warning after the flood. There was a warning at the time of Jesus. And I'm going to take those same words that Jesus said because the same warning applies to us today. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. You who love Jesus so much. If you enjoy my work and would like to support me during these times, especially these times where jobs have been now removed, I'm available for support through Patreon or directly through PayPal. I also am taking, as this world progresses, crypto. If you would like my address for that, just contact me. I really do greatly appreciate it. We are at a stage of world corruption that goes back to Babylon. the return, the back to the future. We're going back to the future. The future is being turned back into Babylon, into the new age, the coming new world, and we need to be initiated into it to accept what they have in store for us. This isn't about God. This isn't about truth. This isn't about wisdom. This is about a religious group based upon Luciferian doctrines that go back all the way to the Garden of Eden, which have been in conflict with the Word of God from the beginning. And that is the war that is taking place right now. And they are recruiting. They are going to and fro, gathering a army, the number of the sands of the sea, to prepare for war. You need to understand this isn't about saving up for the next 50 to 75 years. This is about making it through one of the greatest transitions in human history. This is about coming to understand that all the mumbo jumbo is to make you not believe in the one figure that prevents all of their plans from happening. Jesus is the only way to God. He said, I am the only way to God. He is the door. None can come to God except through him. And none can come to him unless the Father first draw him. Jesus is the only way to the Father. Every other religion, every movement, everything they do is based upon the universal application of it. And Jesus stands alone and says, no, there's only one way, and that is through the grace of God. And they don't want that. And that's the enemy, is God's gift, God's way, God's truth. And they just don't want it. And it's now your choice. That is the war we are in, to join the brotherhood, just like it said in X-Men. There's a war. You can join the brotherhood. The X-Men, the X, the 24th letter, the 6, those who believe that they are the image of God. Or you can come to the side that realizes that we are sinful, we are evil, and from us comes nothing good. But through the mercy and the gift of God, we have received a judgment where we will have life eternal because of God's promise and God's provision. Because we, through our inability, would never have obtained the right to stand before God, for our nature is not perfection. We are the fallen. It was through him we were made to stand again, to stand before God. And we are at that point. We are at the pinnacle. We are at a change in world history. So what side are you on? It's time to come home to reality. The world is turning into the new Babel, the Luciferian world. They're the ones taking over. You can believe them if you want to. I don't understand why you would ever agree and believe you are oppressor. The moment I understood their belief system leads to a worldwide oppressive state, then I know whatever they're doing, it's not God, for God is love. An oppressive, totalitarian state is not love, no matter how they spin it. So call on Jesus, find your way home, and he can find that mercy and place it on you, and who knows, lead you to places of safety, or even a place of hope, wherever you are. I hope this finds you well. God bless.